To add images onto our canvas, we can use the draw image function, and we can also convert a canvas into an image using the toDataURL functions. We're going to take a look at both of those. Now, I'm also going to show another technique that can be used with images called create pattern as well, to show how we could make a background type of wallpaper pattern if we wanted on our particular canvas. So in the code I already have here, you'll note that I'm creating two images. Here's the first one, and here's the second one. And what we're doing is creating a standard DOM image object. I'm saying that when it loads, we'd like to call a draw image function, which we're going to create in just a moment, and we're going to pass it the actual image that loaded. That way we know it's ready and downloaded. And then we're also going to set the source. So what will happen is we create the image, we assign the callback when it's done, and then we set the source. Draw image will then be called. So let's go ahead down here, and I'm going to add a draw image. And it's going to take the image that we want to render to the canvas. We're going to do some pretty specific things with this. I have just some simple variables here to represent on the canvas the destination X and Y and the width and the height that we'd like to render. Now I have in the project a very simple HTML5 logo that I'm going to render here, and you'll see it in action in just a second. And to draw it, we're going to use the more simple set of parameters for draw image here. We're going to pass the image, the destination X and Y, and then the width and the height. And that's it. And what that'll do is put the image 10 over 20 down, and then it'll be 212 by 212, and the image we're going to load here is in an images folder called html5.png. So let me go ahead and run this, and you'll notice that we see it and it looks pretty good. So that's the first thing on using draw image. Now we could also come in and do draw image and actually control the size and area of the source image that we grab. And I'm going to paste in a little bit of code for this one because it's very, very similar to what I just showed, just a few more parameters. Let's tab this over. Alright, so what we're going to do here is the image itself, I don't want to grab the whole image, we're going to say. I only want to grab part of that image and render it on the canvas. So I'm going to define a source X and Y, and I'm going to start in the upper left-hand corner of the image, 0, 0. And then I'm going to go 512, which for this image happens to be the full width. But we're only going to grab 110, whereas the image itself is actually 512 by 512. So we're going to grab the first 110 pixels down. Now I'm going to change where I render it as well. So the X, the Y, the width, and the height of the destination on the canvas are very similar to what I did up here. We're just going to change those numbers a bit. Now moving down to draw image, you'll note that there's a lot more parameters here than the first time I used it. In this particular case, we're not just going to say where to write the image. That's the destination X, Y, width, and height. We're going to say I would like to grab the X and Y coordinates and width and height from the source image. So I don't want to grab the whole image, just part of it. I'm going to crop it in essence. And then I'll say where to render those. So these last parameters are identical to what you saw up here. They'll control where this image goes on the canvas. So let's go ahead and save that and run it, and we should see two images now. And you'll notice that I only grabbed the very top portion of this HTML image that you see here, and then we render it to the canvas. Now this can be useful in a variety of situations. If for instance we're making a game and we're working with sprite sheets, they're called, where you have Mario for instance in different poses running, then we can grab different sections of that main image and then render that particular section onto our canvas using this technique. Now if you just need to grab the whole image, you'll certainly want to just go with the more simple set of parameters here, but this is kind of nice if you want to come down to this option and pass some of the more involved parameters and crop out parts of the actual image. Now I'm going to go ahead and come back up here and we're going to comment out draw image, and I'm going to comment in draw wallpaper. Now the wallpaper that I have is very simple. If we come into images here, here's the HTML5, here's the wallpaper. So what I'd like to do is treat it like wallpaper and put it into a rectangle, but I want to repeat it either on the x-axis, the y-axis, or maybe both. And we'll do both in this particular demonstration. So I'm going to add a new function here called draw wallpaper. And it's going to take the image just like before. And this is pretty simple. What we need to do is call the create pattern function off of our context. and I'm going to give it the image, which is that wallpaper image, and then the second parameter is how do I want to repeat it. Now you can use repeat X, repeat Y, or just repeat in all directions if you'd like. I'm going to use repeat in this particular demonstration. So let's go ahead and add in repeat right here. And that'll take care of repeating that not only on the X but also on the Y axis. Now if I just wanted to do the X or the Y, I would do repeat dash X or Y. We'll do all. There's also an option to do no repeat if you don't want to repeat it, but normally when you're creating a pattern you probably want to repeat it. So coming on down now, we're going to go ahead and set a fill style, but instead of doing a fill style like we've done up to this point with, for instance, a color, we're actually going to give it our pattern, and now we're going to render that into a rectangle. So I'm going to call the rect function that we've talked about earlier. We're going to put it at an XY width and height location here, and then we're going to call fill. So this part here is very, very similar to what we've done before earlier in this module and in this course, but this time instead of just painting a color or filling a color into the rectangle, we're going to go ahead and grab that image and then repeat it. So it'll repeat to automatically fill this width and this height here. Let's go ahead and save that and run it, and there we go. Now had I done something like no repeat, you'll notice that's what the original image actually looks like. But because I did a just repeat of the X and the Y, it actually fills the entire rectangle area as you see here and automatically kind of stitches that together, if you will. Now the final thing I'm going to show is how we can actually grab the data from a canvas and show it as an image. And you'll note that there's a button down here called Show Canvas Image, and it's going to call this function I'm going to create called Show Canvas as Image. And what I'm going to do here is use a function called toDataURL. So I'm going to take our canvas, which currently is stored as a global variable. You'll see it right here. And we're going to say canvas toDataURL. And then I'm going to do a window.open and show the actual data. So we're going to show the data URL. I'm going to just say canvas as image is the title of it. We're going to put a width and a height. So let's do a width of, say, let's go about 300 and a height of maybe 300. I think that'll fit it okay. And let's save it and run it, and you're going to see this isn't going to work out so well, unfortunately. So I'd like to save this, so I'm going to try to pop it up. You'll notice I don't get anything. Well, if I go into the, in this case, Chrome Developer Tools, you'll see I have an error, and it says DOM exception 18. Now, normally the reason you'll get this is if one of the images that you've loaded into the canvas comes from a different domain, then you're not going to be able to convert your canvas into an image. It's just due to cross-domain restrictions. Or, in this example, you'll note that I'm running it right off the C drive as a file, and that won't work either. Now, fortunately, if this was on a web server, this would work okay. So I'm going to go ahead and open this file in Visual Studio, since this will add a little web server for me. And what I can do now is right-click on that, say View in Browser, and this will automatically allow me to show a pop-up because all my images are local. First off, I'm not calling a cross-domain, and also, as I try to convert this into an image, this canvas here, because I'm on a web server now, it'll work. So I'll do Show Canvas as Image, we get a nice pop-up, and there we go. That's my image that was actually created right there. Now what it does is it actually makes a special URL here up at the top, and the URL, although it doesn't show the whole thing here, actually has a base64 encoded string of data, which modern browsers know how to convert that into images and then display them, and that's what's happening here. Now we can do the same thing. If I were to come back into here, let's comment out the wallpaper and comment back in the draw image with the HTML5 image. Once this loads, you'll see that we can actually render this image, and we'll now draw it, and there we go. We actually drew it, and this is in a separate window. This is truly now an image. I can actually save it if I want as an image and do something with it. So that's an example of some of the different image functions that are available with the HTML5 canvas.